birthday.
So, about that birthday dinner?
Yeah, but my mom's planning it for Super Bowl Sunday, and it's like, I watch the Super Bowl every year.
I'm literally not watching the Super Bowl this year. I think this might be the first time in my life.
Yeah, I don't know. I also got to try my first bilingual Dr. Pepper.
Your what?
My first bilingual Dr. Pepper.
Can you go in on that? Because I have no idea what that means.
Yeah, because when you sell something in Quebec, it has to have French on it. So all of the marketing for like the Dr. Pepper, like the year it was established and the 23 flavors and all of that, French.
Okay. So no, yeah, I wasn't sure. Like I heard bilingual Dr. Pepper, and I was kind of thrown off by the whole wording of it. I've never heard of bilingual Dr. Pepper. I thought you saw a doctor who spoke both languages and just happened to be named Dr. Pepper. That was literally what went through my mind at first. It wasn't processing. I knew it was incorrect. So I'm glad you explained it, because that would have been a very horrible assumption.
Well, on the show, Married at First Sight, one of their doctors, her first name was Pepper, so I just always called her Dr. Pepper.
Okay. See,
but now I'm back. Now I'm back to drinking boring, plain, monolingual Dr. Pepper. Only one language on here.
America.
Doesn't taste quite as French.
Welcome back. Welcome back to the great state. And welcome back to our audience for another episode of the AHL pre-show. Yeah, I'm Drew.
I'm Dee.
Yeah, she's back from her little excursion abroad, and we're here to break down just all the fun stuff that's been going on in the American Hockey League over the last week and what's going to be coming ahead the next week. So it's going to be an hour of fun-filled fun. I had to double dip on the fun there, but it's going to be that much fun. Yeah, to start out, we had some all-stars in the desert there. Coachella Valley, the All-Stars Classic finally came underway, and I honestly I didn't get through a whole lot of it. It's in the West Coast, okay? For us East Coasters, it's a bit of a late stay up, but Central Division represent, getting that dub, and I love it. I love that. I like seeing Dan Watson and Austin Watson, the two Watson brothers coming together. Not really brothers, but I like to believe that they are. And yeah, it's great to endear to a brand new fan base that's going on out there in Coachella. They've already obviously seen a whole lot of success. Now they're getting the games in a brand new arena. Looked like a ton of fun. I really, really, really wish I could have gone, but life is a little complicated. So, but what did you think? Did you get a chance to tune in from north of the border?
No, I was a little busy.
So you saw none of it.
I'm here for the recap, the breakdown. Talk to me. I was in the midst of like being a beer league wag and surprise 30th birthday parties for my dude, and a whole bunch of like, I've kissed so many Italian cheeks in the past 2 weeks that I'm totally fine if I never have to greet another Italian in my life.
Wow, I'm hurt by that. I'm legitimately hurt by that.
Yeah, no, it's a lot. It was
all right. Moving past the anti-Italian discrimination. I really liked the in the what they did with the skills competition. Though there's a select number of players and goalies and everything that were rocking the GoPros, so you just had like all the action just at like right at ice level and all that going on.
Yeah,
and it's just it's because it's one thing to watch the game from up top or in the stands, everything, but when you have that actual like first person perspective and you're seeing the speed in which these guys move and the plays that they can make with the puck and everything, or just how fast your mind has to process it. I think that's really kind of what blows me away, because like I'm used to my level of understanding of the game at an ice level, like in the beer leagues, where things are a little slower than they are at elite professional level like this. And seeing the guys being able to make the plays that they do and the speed that they do is, it's astounding. And that's kind of why, you tune into the games to begin with. It's the best of the best, unless you're the representative of the Bridgeport Islanders. And it's fun to see just kind of everyone kind of come together. I love seeing a lot of these guys have been around the league for a while. And, Ryan Suzuki and Andrew Podorowski, example of like some teammates coming together. And
one of whom might not exist.
They both exist. Okay, we had, yes, there was an actual NHL game played by both of these guys actually within the last week. So I don't want to.
That sounds actually kind of like propaganda to me.
We went over this last week. We were so glad that we got to talk about Ryan Suzuki's debut and didn't have to deal with any of this. It was wonderful.
I will deny the existence of Ryan Suzuki all the way to a Stanley Cup win. Like he doesn't exist.
There's got to be some form of physical evidence if it's engraved. It's his name engraved on the Calder Cup for
the fake.
No, you can look at it.
No, it could be propaganda. They've misspelled multiple things on the Stanley Cup, so it could have been misspelling. It could have been Ryan Suzuki, and they just wrote Suzuki instead.
No, because now you're saying Ryan Suzuki is a real person.
I mean, for all we know.
I do know.
Okay.
Anyway,
what happened is I would like to meet up with Ryan Suzuki. I need him to bring today's newspaper and a party hat, and we'll get a selfie, and then I will quit denying his existence.
Newspapers don't exist anymore.
Yeah, they do.
No, they don't.
Yes, they do.
There are less news. There's more evidence of Ryan Suzuki existing in the world in 2025 than there is newspapers.
No, because I can walk out my front door tomorrow morning at 8:00 and there will be a newspaper in my driveway. If I walk out my door tomorrow morning at 8:00 and there's a Ryan Suzuki in my driveway, one, I'm going to have a couple of questions, and two, I might lose my marbles.
Sounds like a waste of trees to me. Anyway, the games were they were a ton of fun. It's always great for the league to kind of showcase its best talent, and again, endearing to a new fan base like Coachella. It looked like it was just an absolute blast and total. It's I feel like when the NHL does its All-Star weekends, everyone kind of finds ways to nitpick and criticize it, and when the AHL does it, everyone finds ways to lift it up and be like, this is awesome. This is great for the league, blah, 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 blah. I mean, you never really hear like, oh man, that skills competition was so boring. I was falling asleep through it. Like you do with the NHL. For whatever reason, maybe it's just because the AHL players kind of get up for it a little more, but.
Yeah, you don't have like Alex Ovechkin in the AHL just like saying, give me the suspension because I'm not going to the All-Star game this year. I think it's nice that it was in a warmer environment. I know, it's like hit or miss because sometimes they hold it in Laval, and it gets
to be -30. Yeah,
yeah. It's like what, real, but the ones that are held in more like in warmer places, I feel like have to be such a nice little like getaway for the All-Stars, where it's like, okay, I can go have some fun and like remember why I love hockey, but like I'm not bundled up in multiple winter coats because I've been playing in San Jose all season, like.
Which begs the question, why on God's green earth did they pick Rockford, Illinois for the next one?
Yeah, but you don't know noted hockey town, Rockford, Illinois. You're not. in the middle of the week in Rockford, Illinois.
In the middle of the week in Rockford, Illinois.
You know what? It sounds like a winning game plan to me. Print it.
Okay, that's the most criticism I'm ever going to give the AHL for an All-Star game. That was I'm not so. Coachella, great. Rockford. It's okay. It's okay. It's not till next year. I have 364 more days until I get disappointed again.
That's 364 more roasts. Figured out, AHL.
Well, yeah, exactly. There was one noticeable absence from the All-Star game. Chicago's Scott Morrow, who's second in AHL defenseman, rookie scoring. He, one of the two Wolves that was heading to the games. Now, if this would have happened in Suzuki, I would have supported your theory. But at the 11th hour, Scott Morrow kind of not there for the skills competition, and they find out the day after that he's actually been plucked up to Carolina. But they don't play until Tuesday in Winnipeg. So Morrow could have participated and then made the trip or whatever. It would have been a tight window, gets a couple practices with the team, but there's some fans out there in Chicago that think that Scotty Morrow was done dirty by not representing the Central Division in the All-Star game. Now, Central Division didn't need him, apparently. Maybe this was just a conspiracy by the AHL to try and level the playing field, and we just blew him away anyway, but...
Do we have 100% positive confirmation that Scott Morrow is a real person?
That I cannot confirm. I haven't had an interview. I haven't we don't know.
Maybe it's two people who don't exist.
I'll give you Scott Morrow, but I've tangibly had touched the hand of Suzuki.
I know. AI's gotten really good, hasn't it?
It's not that good yet. It's not.
Animatronics are incredible. Disney's doing great stuff nowadays.
Take the red pill, D. It's not that good yet.
AI's incredible. Have you ever seen hands? AI can't do hands. That's why you've never seen his hands.
I shook his hand. Yes.
AI's gotten really good.
I mean, I've seen Scott Morrow's hands too, but
Elon's making advances.
Anyway, we're just gonna kick that grenade down the road. I want to take a look at because there's some fun names, and I know you can give me insight on one of them to our award winners for the month of January.
Yes.
In San Diego, of all places, Sasha Pastujov won the Player of the Month. And, I do love seeing success stories, even when the team itself isn't bad. That's not so hot. But, Pastujov's had a great month offensively. And, I enjoy that he's getting that recognition. And those goals jerseys are, can we talk about kind of like how boring and gross they are just for a quick minute?
Well, it's the goals. So.
Well, I like the color scheme, but there's just no creativity. It's just like goals, and then there's just this whole empty space in the belly, and it's like, guys, what's going on? And then they show it at the skills competition, and it's just like you got this nice clean aesthetic all around, and then it's just like goals, and it's just disappointing. Anyway. For the Rookie of the Month, it is Wilkes-Barre Scranton's Ville Koivunen. He had 2 hat tricks going in the month of January. One of them against the Hershey Bears, 4-goal performance. And this guy was kind of a throwaway, not a throwaway, but was part of that Jake Gensel trade last year, and he wasn't fully into his game in Chicago. I'll say that. You saw flashes, but he's still young, first year over in North America, et cetera, et cetera. And now you're really starting to see this guy kick off. And Wilkes-Barre and Club Penguin are really kind of taking off in the Atlantic Division. He's a big reason for that one.
No, we love that for them.
I do love it for them. I feel like my time covering beats in the AHL, I've seen the Penguins kind of go from punching bag to mid to now they're like, this is a shark in the water.
Yeah, they're getting there.
I like it. And then here's a name that you're quite familiar with. Cayden Primeau is goaltender of the month. And I was really, I wouldn't say shocked by this because I've been seeing Jacob Dobesh over there in Laval just kind of turn it up. And I think they kind of switched roles. Yep. Like seeing Dobesh up there in Montreal and playing really well on top of it too. And I like that the mentality, I don't think, for Primeau is like you're being punished by going to Laval, because I think you would see in his demeanor like, oh, okay, well, for lack of a better term, forget this. And you're seeing him instead kind of like, okay, well, I'm just going to work on my game, just going to keep playing it, keep my head down, keep at it. And I don't think he's lost in January. I think he has a undefeated record. So,
well, he's the goaltender of the month.
Generally, if you don't lose in the month, you're probably going to get goaltender of the month. But yeah, give us a little insight on like what's going down with that whole goaltending situation up there in Quebec, especially because you just came from there.
Yeah, this is a conversation I had in multiple languages, actually. No, yeah, it's like, what do I always say? Goalies take the longest, and there's no like whatever. Primeau is like he's on the cusp of being like too good for the AHL but not good enough for the NHL yet. And literally the argument that I made while I was having passionate hockey conversations with a bunch of Italian Montrealers was that Primeau's development was not done. And I don't mean like he wasn't finished developing. It wasn't given to him in the way he needed it. So he's been up and down so much. His first like season and a half, he was just like up and down and up and down and up and down. And maybe you're playing and maybe you're not playing and whatever. And then they wanted to throw all of this weight on him after, the organization lost Jake Allen, and Carey Price is probably never playing another game of hockey again. So it's, like a lot of whatever. And he had such a tumultuous like development, like even just with like the Rocket and stuff, like having to take on a lot of responsibility and everything. And then getting, up to Montreal, and it's like, great, you're playing some pretty good hockey, but he wasn't properly developed because they were so committed to that 3 goalie rotation for so long. You get rid of, a goalie now. It's okay. We got 2 goalies, and it's going to be this, really kind of like hot and cold guy, and then the guy that, what probably was not ready when we brought him up. And I don't think Primeau is one of the kind of people to get, reassigned to Laval and be like, oh, well, woe is me. I'm redacted goalie who blocked me on Twitter. I don't want to play here. It's Keith Kincaid.
I was going to say his name.
Boo-hoo. Boo. I'm a crybaby. No, Cayden Primeau's an intensely competitive guy. So sure to, a weaker person with a weaker constitution, Keith Kincaid. Maybe Dobesh coming up and taking your backup position and you getting sent back into his backup position when he's the guy who replaced you in Laval. To a weaker person, sure, that would very probably be like a big like setback and a big demotivator. But Cayden Primeau, all through like college and everything too, had to fight for his net. He had to fight for his crease, and he had to put in the work and get better. He had to. Even in Laval, he had to. So he earned the crease in Laval. If anybody knows anything about earning their starts back, it's gonna be Cayden Primeau. And we can see it built the heck out of his confidence going down because he's a cusper. He's right on the cusp. Whereas, like, you know, sure, Dobesh came in, swooped in, whatever, but Dobesh, you know, is a little closer to being ready. We're gonna give him some NHL starts and see, and you know, he's kind of, you know, he got a little, you know, he's on a little bit of a downswing, but so are the Habs. And it's, you know, it's just the goalie's gone because he got injured and Heineman's injured and they're still playing Mike Matheson and all sorts of stuff. Josh Anderson is still on the team. So, you know, there's a lot of problems in Montreal. It's like you can't just expect all of like the slack to be picked up by Dobesh or by Montembeault. And yeah, I have my own problems with Montembeault, but it's Dobesh versus Primeau, right? They've both played the same nets. They've both had to earn it from the same position. Well, not Primeau, because he kind of made his professional debut in Montreal. But if it was a weaker person, if it was somebody who hasn't had to fight his entire career since like college for everything that he's ever gotten, I'd be worried. I'm not worried about Primeau. If he ends up being like more of a journeyman goalie, if he ends up being predominantly an AHL goalie and gets called up when they need a reliable backup due to injury, I don't see that being a problem for Primeau. I think we might not see Primeau in Laval forever. We might not see Primeau in the Canadiens organization forever, because he might go somewhere and try to find somewhere that's going to play him. But for as long as he's with the organization, I don't see it being a problem for him.
Yeah, and you know, I think like the way you kind of described him, well, we don't know kind of what his end role is yet, but if he, you know, ends up becoming that journeyman kind of number 3 goalie for his career, you know, I don't think Michael Hutchinson ever had any complaints about his career going the way that it went. So it's, you know, that's not a bad thing to.
Really good comparison for it too. Where it's like you've got somebody who's just so like, you're telling me I get to wake up every day and my job is professional hockey? Doesn't matter where he plays. He's just like ready to do it. I love Hutch. Ugh.
Yeah. I think he'll be fine. I agree. And, you know, I've said it many times on this pod, but it's always good to reiterate, like, goaltending development is very rarely ever linear. You know?
Yeah, almost never.
Almost never. Exactly. Like, I feel like watching Sebastian Cossa and seeing his development being linear and is the exception and not the rule.
Right. And you're kind of like bracing for that impact too of like, okay, there's gonna be a backslide.
Yeah. I'm just waiting for, well, I was saying I'll just wait until he gets called up to the wings and then that goes down, but Derek Lalonde can't hurt me anymore. So
yeah, you hardly ever get people who just kind of like spend a few years in the AHL and then all of a sudden they're Carey Price. Like, even like goalies that have won multiple Stanley Cups aren't necessarily like generational talent. Like even Bobby Lou who is a generational talent, with or without the cups, had to develop.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And even for him, it wasn't. I mean, Vancouver was a roller coaster. They tried to run him out of town for Corey Schneider.
Hottest mess. The absolute hottest dumpster fire you have ever seen in your life.
But he persevered, and I'm so just one last tangent. I'm so happy that he got his ring with the Florida organization. Like, bless the hockey gods for that one, because he's one of those that like you really root for Strombone, and that was like one of those. Him and Paul Maurice, I think, was the happiest for more than anyone on the actual team.
Yeah, like, I don't actually even care about any of these players. Paul Maurice to redeem himself after Winnipeg. Like, how are you gonna have a good team and a good coach and then be Winnipeg? Like, it doesn't make any sense. You have a generational goaltender, like first ballot. Nope, forgot about that. First ballot Hall of Fame goaltender. You're gonna have, some of the best of forwards in the league. You're gonna have some of the biggest hitting defensemen in the league, and you're gonna have Paul Maurice as your coach, and you're gonna just like absolutely crap out every single year. Like, how are you gonna do that, man? Figure it out, Winnipeg.
We gotta get Big Buff his ring next. Except he's already got his ring and just like fishing and being.
Oh yeah, he's like living his best life.
Yeah, so maybe he does. Just let Buff be Buff.
Let him be retired. This man literally was like, guys, I'm not playing professional ice hockey anymore, and you're not going to hear from me except for when you do, and it will be in the last place you expect. And a bass boat is like the last place you expect to hear from Dustin Byfuglien.
What a vibe, man! I love that. So, getting some more vibes here. This one is not quite as vibey for fans of Milwaukee, because their leading scorer, Vinnie Hinistroza, was just claimed off waivers yesterday. Minnesota decided that they didn't like Hinistroza lighting up the Wild every time they decided to meet, and when they tried passing him through waivers, the Wild were like, yeah. Yoink.
Yeah, we'll have that.
We'll have that guy. And
we'll be having that. Thank you.
And I mean, talk about an offensive, loss for the Admirals. He had been averaging over 1.25 per game and with Milwaukee. So that's massive. I mean, we love seeing these guys get their flowers, and maybe he'll have a better opportunity, bigger role. I mean, I know Minnesota's really hurting now that Kirill Kaprizov is probably going to be out for a couple months. My fantasy team, I know, is really hurting in that one.
Also, Werenski got injured, and also so did Josh Manson. I only carry 4 defensemen at a time because I put all of my money on in forwards and goalies. I only ever carry 4 defensemen at a time. Luckily for me, Drew Doughty and Charlie McAvoy were on no teams, so I picked them up the other day.
Context for our listeners: there's only 6 people in our league. Like this isn't like we're playing against bots. Like this is
Drew Doughty and Charlie McAvoy. I think Jen had them at some point, and she dropped players like it's like the next fashion trend.
She's just like
she's like, I'll have that. You know what? I don't. So I picked them up because I was down to 2 defensemen. Werenski's apparently healthy again tonight, so I gotta go.
I totally had to scramble. This was my last tangent before we look at the matchups going ahead. I had to totally scramble because my entire draft strategy was to get defensemen who have get points and everything, which is great, until I realized that there was so much weight behind block shots and hits, and I realized that Quinn Hughes doesn't do any of that.
None of that. No.
I was like, oh no.
It's everything. And that's why it's I got players that do absolutely nothing, but they're great for my fantasy team.
For sure Wood gets 10 hits a game. That's the only reason why he's in my lineup.
I'm talking about you, John Carlson. Figure it out, man. You're so good at shots on goal and blocks.
Oh, I love that, where you just dial in a guy that's he's got one job and he does it well.
One. I got Arturi Lehkonen for the vibes, but also because he'll put 10 shots on the net, maybe score on half of that.
I love the chaos of that league. So
also the best. These are some of the top tierest fantasy names I've ever seen in my entire life. And my team's name is Le Honk. It's a picture of a goose with a knife. We just absolute vibes out here.
But that is, I think, if there is any one picture to capture your energy, that is the one. Silly goose, but not afraid to stab someone. And so from that to that's the week prior. Now let's take a look at the week ahead. Now that, the festivities are over and everyone's going to stop being buddy-buddy with themselves, and we're going to get back into it. And we got, like, major playoff implications coming up. Like, I already know that we're getting really close to, like, the what's like they put out that stat tracker every day that tells you, like, everyone's magic number and, like, who's got, like, however many points. The playoff primer. That's it. Yes. That's coming pretty soon. I'm like, that's how you know it's coming.
Primer season. I'm like, tell me the numbers.
Right.
Numbers.
The numbers, Mason. What do they mean? Yeah. So we're gonna take a look at some matchups. They got, like, some big implications towards that. Playoff primer is not out yet, but we will be bringing that to you as soon as it does. I'm going to start with a couple that are both in our interest, because Friday and Saturday, Grand Rapids is going into Milwaukee. And after the last weekend before the All-Star break, I need Grand Rapids to wake up already. They had 2 games at home against Colorado, and they got shut out in both of them. And the first game, it was like they were in it, and they just couldn't get, like, Adam Schill was hot. Okay, cool. That happens. That second game was one of the worst hockey games I've ever seen. And I watched the 23-24 version of the Chicago Wolves. So that really has to tell you something there. I think, like, something's got to give in that locker room, because, like, I get you're in first place and it's like good vibes and all that. Yeah, but you still got to show up and play the games. Now, I get it. They've had some call-ups. Dominic Shine, the heart and soul of the team, was up in Detroit. Love seeing that for Shiner. Just got sent back down today, so he's going to be coming back for this weekend. They cannot afford to start just throwing points away, getting and trying and taking this thing into neutral all the way into the playoffs, because Texas is right behind you. Milwaukee is dangerous as always. Chicago's even in there kind of climbing up the standings, and you're going to be seeing them a couple times throughout the season. Like, wake up, man. Wake up. This is me shaking your body while you're in the shared dream state and inception, telling you to wake up.
Me personally, I was okay with Colorado winning both of those, but that's just me personally.
And that's valid, and I like that for you, but that's that whole, like, two sides of the coin here thing. Colorado, great, good vibes. I feel like that horrible line change in the Ontario game is, like, galvanized Colorado, and now they're like they're just they haven't been, I don't think they've been scored on since that goal. So, like,
bad enough to, like,
right. So they're just taking full advantage of everyone else being just total goofballs. And why not? If the other team's going to play like that. So good for Colorado. Glad they're in the Pacific and not in the Central. And
even though they should probably be in the Central.
Even though I've been campaigning for them to be in the Central for God knows how long now, and I will continue to do so. And then I just I had to get out that whole little out of my body before I got into the next matchup.
Right, we can get back into it now.
And we're going to go back across the border with this one, because on Friday and Saturday we got just a classic, Laval and Toronto. Like, this is as AHL as it gets. 2 rabid fan bases, and, like, I feel like the Marlies fans are those like, you don't want to pay the $900 for the Maple Leaf tickets, and that's 900 Canadian, which is no. We avoided that 25% extra charge on those. So
yeah, but it's incredible. I paid like $120 for some stuff at Winners, which is like a TJ Maxx. And it charged my bank account $83 American. It was like, oh, I love the street.
I know. Now you know the rush of going abroad and seeing how far your dollar really takes you.
I used to live in Germany.
I don't know how old you were when you were. Did you have actual spending power?
Yeah, I was a whole adult.
Well, this is how much I pay attention to the details. Anyway,
22 years old.
showdown north of the border.
Yeah.
What do you got the vibes for then this one?
I think it's gonna be like pretty solid. The Marlies are kind of like sneaking up the standings. They do have like one game in hand on the Rocket, but the Rocket took off out of the gate this season and have stumbled like 1.5 times. Like it's been all uphill for the Rocket. They're coming in obviously with Cayden Primeau, who has like found his passion again and like his energy and his rhythm, his groove, his everything. Like you could probably start him both games and it's not a problem. The thing is though that Cayden Gooley lacerated a quadricep, which means that they needed some call-ups, and the Montreal Canadiens currently have both of the Rockets All-Stars, so that's kind of a problem. But the Rocket, even though I want to say they split their most recent games with Hartford. One of them was in the afternoon, and I tried to get tickets to it, but they were sold out apparently. So I was like, I will sit in the tunnel on a folding chair. I don't care. I will pay you $1,000 American. You know how many monies that is Canadian? Just
a lot of money.
But no, they were completely sold out, so I couldn't get to it. But I know it was really solid. Like, it was really good little back to back. For them, they won the first one, and then they kind of, everything kind of caught up to them on the second one. So, but they're coming off of that. They're coming off of the need to redeem themselves. If anybody knows anything about the Laval Rocket, it's going to be that redemption is imminent. The Marlies, honestly, they're third. They're third in the division. Like, they are well within a playoff spot. They are looking to kind of claw some seeding out of the latter end of the season. I would say where the Marlies have traditionally started to lose some ground is definitely in this part of the season, where it gets usually to be a race between the last team in the North to make it into the playoffs. So this is kind of where they start losing steam. This Marlies squad, though, I really think is going to be very, very motivated after, kind of having to battle it out for the past couple of seasons. They're playing with a lot of energy this year, the Marlies. They're playing with a lot of drive and passion. So you've got a team that needs redemption, a team that is in the long run still cementing themselves as a contender, even though they've made the playoffs so many times. They're still kind of cementing themselves as a contender for the Calder Cup. So it's the battle of wills, honestly. I think it's going to be just a really good Canadian hockey showdown.
Fun little wrinkle I noticed when I was checking out the stats between these two. Laval, at the top of the standings, also has the most penalty minutes in the North. Toronto has the least. So in one extra game, Laval has 250 more penalty minutes than Toronto.
Nobody asked you, Andrew.
I know. That's even better. I just found this out on my own.
Yeah, I know. But think about it this way. I mean, I always say the Rocket. It's an organizational thing, man. We always we want them to play more disciplined, right? Because it's don't put yourself in the position to get scored on. But the teams owned by Molson are pretty good on the penalty kills, so you're also kind of not worried about them. It's the double-edged sword, because you want them to be taking those penalty minutes because it means they care. You want you kind of want to see that, because it's all right, well, you're not just kind of coasting. You're not just you're upset that something's not going your way, or you're you're really, it doesn't matter, you're blowing the game out, but you're still fighting for the win. You still care, you want to win. It's always a good sign in teams under the Sayash umbrella. It's when they stop taking the penalty minutes that you're kind of like, well, what? You know, it's like with the Habs, with the Rocket, with the Lions, literally all three of them. Like, you want them to be more disciplined, like watching them, and like covering them, like caring about them. But then you're also like, okay, but like at the end of the day, if they're not playing, like they're not playing with passion, and they're not like their head's not in it, they're not here to win it, and like I kind of also just like need them to hate to lose. It's not a want to win, it's a hate to lose.
Hate to lose. I feel that. And to their credit, the Rocket do have a really good penalty kill that's coming in at about 82.4%. The only thing that worries me is that Toronto comes in on their end with, by the numbers, the best power play percentage in the North Division. So,
but Cayden Primeau.
But Cayden Primeau, exactly, and that's going to make your best penalty killer got to be your goalie. And
he always has been. Like, he's always been so good on the disadvantage. Like, and especially in the AHL. I'd be so much more worried about Primeau if he was still in the NHL. I think in the AHL he's going to be able to like get back to basics, and we're seeing that. We're seeing the basics come back to him.
I am excited to see that one. So then on Saturday, we got a interdivisional matchup. We got Cleveland going into Club Penguin to take on the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins. Now, it's always fun to look at these standings because Wilkes-Barre, by rights, is fourth in the Atlantic Division, but their points percentage has them really kind of just behind Hershey, even though that they're 9 points behind, but they've only played 39 games to Hershey's 45. So,
do they still have Jari?
I believe Jari is still down there. Yes, I will double check on that. But who they still have is Ville Koivunen and Vasily Ponomarev, who are just been red hot this last month for them. And it's, the points percentage is one thing to look at, but it's like a one in the hand, two in the bush thing. You have games in hand, but that doesn't guarantee you points. You have to go out there and gain them. And
right, well, you're gonna get to the end of your playing season, and we're gonna be catching up.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that win against Hershey did incredible things for Club Penguins' morale, for their the mindset, just the motivation, just like literally like that is going to build your confidence way more than anything else. Like, this is a behemoth in the league, and it's like these are the people that we cannot get past in the playoffs every single year. We meet up with them, we're like, we can't even get to them. Lehigh Valley decides they remember how to play hockey or something. And I think it did a lot, I think, for the confidence, just for what I think we're seeing that on the ice too, just with I just literally killing. I mean, also it doesn't hurt to have Tristan Jari as your starting goaltender in the AHL, so it's just
Yeah, I actually kind of want to point out to his partner in crime in that they actually kind of look like they're running a bit of a 3-goalie system. You got Philip Larson in there, but youngster Sergei Marashov, first season here in the AHL, and he's 5-0. He got his first shutout against Hershey. I wonder if they're going to start giving this kid a few more looks up there with the Penguins to kind of see what you got. I mean, it's his first year in North America. It might be a lot to kind of put on the kid, but
where did he play before?
I would assume Russia.
Yes, but there are multiple teams in that league.
Multiple leagues in Russia. So I would have to do a bit more research on that. But again, when you're kind of coming in 5-0 in the season, you just shut out Hershey. Why not? Why not give this kid another look? He's also beaten Charlotte on the road lately, so that could be a factor down the road where, you have Jari, who's got all the experience, all the, the accolades on one side, and then you got the unknown kind of rookie kid who came out of Yaroslavl Lokomotiv.
Oh, Lokomotiv's doing great actually recently. They're developing well. They always have. Also, I think they're the ones with the plane crash.
Yes, and from, jeez, man, that was like 15 years ago already now.
But yeah, Lokomotiv though they've been pretty solid.
Mm-hmm.
They have Lokomotiv in particular with their goaltending.
And this young kid's
the
he's a locomotive of his own, and he's about to start, I think, take this league by storm pretty quick here.
Look, the Habs really love drafting like Russian kids that you have to be on like watch for, Romanov and Demidov and whoever. Shout out Miracle. I told you I could get a Miracle reference into every episode. But yeah, Lokomotiv's pretty solid. It's a pretty solid place to develop as a young Russian goaltender, especially coming from the Russian school of goaltending.
Yeah. We've seen, from Bobrovsky to Vasilevsky, Kochekov, that nation has a particular focus on their goaltenders. It was Finland for a while. I do think that Russia's kind of taken over that mantle as like, if you want you want the next big thing in that, it's probably coming out of that Far East there.
I remember when everybody was on Shesterkin watch.
Oh yeah, that's right. Man, I named everyone. I didn't even say Igor. He's the highest. He's making bank over there in New York.
Yeah. I remember when we were all on like watch and like the debate between like how does he want his name to be pronounced? Does he want it actually like correctly pronounced with the Y, or is he more like say the E is fine but just get the rhythm correctly? And so everybody landed on like Shesterkin or like whatever. But yeah, I remember the debate was, do we pronounce the Y because the letter E doesn't exist in Russia? Everybody was like bated breath, like when is Igor making his way to North America? And he's still like, listen, the Rangers are the Rangers. But you can't really put most of the blame on Igor.
No, it's that Ranger situation is. I mean, I'm happy for it. I might have prayed a little bit when it came to that downfall, but there's a lot of messy factors, I think, in that.
Right. I think it's time to sell the team. Like I truly wouldn't say that like for most teams, like I think the most part, like if the owners could just get management in that, like they really like could kind of put under their thumb and like make sure they were kind of their little puppets. But I really think it's just time for it's time for a new identity in that team. And I'm really not a sell the team kind of person, but I really think it's time to sell the team and get a whole new front office staff in. And kind of evaluate from there.
Yeah,
that poor team, those poor players. Well, except for Chris Kreider.
I was about to say I knew that was coming, or some kind of comment in that regard.
He can rot, even though he's like currently doing pretty solid things on my fantasy team.
Saturday and Sunday. This is a bit of another interesting wrinkle. Iowa at Manitoba, as I like to affectionately call it, the toilet bowl, because these are some like, I want to see who's going to show up in this game. It's one, you're on the road to Manitoba and you're on a team in Iowa that's the only thing that's keeping you out of the basement is Manitoba. And it's been a tough year. I just saw their penalty killing is at 70%. I mean, I am a harsh critic of Ben Simon here, left and right, but I didn't know it was that bad. Oh, and when you look at how your best penalty killer has to be your goalies. I mean, Jesper Wallstedt has been having a bit of a rough go. Samoavel is just that same. It's just they're trying their best, but so speaking of preying on downfall, what do you see out of this one?
I want to say that it's what Iowa deserves.
I love it.
Hockey is a sport where if anything is at 70%, like that's not good enough. Like anything else, any other real world application, 70% of the time is like some good odds. Like 70% of the time I'm gonna stop that thing from happening. It's like, okay, you know what? We can work with that. 70% on a penalty kill or on God forbid a power play. 70% on a penalty kill is like fire everyone. Actually, you know what? Fire the team and send them back to Houston because like stop sucking.
I didn't want to. Well, I was about to say, if you get this team in Houston, you might stop watching. I know I would.
Nah, because it's nice here. It's Houston. They're gonna come back to Houston and be like, do you know what, guys? I think we actually know how to play hockey. And I'm gonna be like,
I don't know if they do.
You know, Iowa kills your soul.
Jesper Wallstead was. Do you remember? Let's wind the clock back about like 3.5 years when Steve Yzerman drafted Sebastian Cossa, traded up to get a draft pick to draft Sebastian Cossa, and everyone is freaking out because it's like, oh, Jesper Wallstedt is the guy. He's the one who's going to be more pro ready early on. You're rebuilding. You gotta this is the goalie to take. Sebastian Cossa made his first All-Star this year. He's looking every bit to be the franchise goalie going forward in Detroit. Jesper Wallstedt has an .871 save percentage. I get Iowa's bad, but that can't make you feel good, right?
Yeah, but then again, it's like...
Well, it makes you feel good because you're preying on their downfall.
Right. Again, like I actually live for
that. We lift goalies up on this podcast. We got to try and pick Jesper up. I
mean, I guess unless they're in Iowa, at which point they can rot.
This poor kid.
It does suck. It's like, listen,
The good thing is Minnesota's good this year because if they were bad, and then I feel like there would be so much more pressure on this kid. So,
I mean, I guess, but also there's a certain point where it's like I kind of don't know where the collapse is coming from because Iowa, I wouldn't say has been good, but they've been serviceable. You know what I mean? They've been but it hasn't been like this catastrophic of a collapse.
Right.
They've been serviceable. They looked like they were kind of starting to take those baby steps toward an upward trajectory. And then all of a sudden they just looped back into the ground.
Yeah, I think they started off the year better than I anticipated. I anticipated this to be one of the worst teams in the league, but I severely underestimated Bridgeport.
Not me.
But so I think they're still kind of riding some of those fumes from how well they started off, and they're like, oh yeah, we're going to be a team this year, and then technically they still are a team. It's just
right. You mean the metaphorical sense, have yourself a season. Obviously they're gonna... No, what I think it is I think it's worse when you start off good. When you start off looking like this is it, we're gonna maybe not contend, but we're gonna compete this year. I think once when you start backsliding, you still have the momentum of all of the good that kind of adds to the weight, pulls you back faster. Mm-hmm. Now not only are you fighting the lack of winning or the mindset that comes with that, you're also fighting those intrusive thoughts of okay, what's wrong with me? Because we were good. What's wrong with us? We were good.
Yeah, I think it's easier to crawl out of a early hole that you've dug for yourself versus like you give yourself that false hope and then reality hits you like a ton of bricks and now you're in with Iowa. And I just the thought of going up to Winnipeg on a February weekend to play in front of maybe like 500 people and just like, you know what, I'm gonna look at the forecast, and if it's like -20 and like terrible, if I was Iowa, I'd stay home. So
I might have pulled my hamstring actually. I don't know.
yeah.
Don't think I'll make it. Sorry, coach.
So the high on Saturday is 1. That's Fahrenheit.
Okay.
That's Fahrenheit.
That bad. It's low.
Oh, and then on Sunday it's good. Sunday it's a little bummer. It's up to 6.
Okay.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Yeah.
And then, you know, hopefully I don't know if they want to catch the early flight because it's -11 of the low, and then it gets down to -4 on Monday. So
well, that's not bad. That's not the worst.
bring a coat.
Yeah, bring a coat. Obviously, make sure you have a beanie. Maybe don't do what I did. Maybe opt for hot coffee, whereas my Timmy's run, my go-to order is like a large iced cap and
You're from Houston.
One of the 5 cheese bagels with cream cheese. Oh, and apparently there's butter on it too. Yeah, ice cap, and I'd just be like over here, like sitting around, just like with my ice cap. Everybody's like, "You're not cold." I'm like, "No," and they're like, "You're from Texas," and I'm like, "That's so cool." But like, I lived on a mountain in Colorado and by the Austrian border. Like, I think I'm fine. I'm totally fine. They're like, "You didn't want to wear winter boots," and I was like, "No, I wanted to wear cowboy boots. Thank you. I got wool socks on under here."
America. Last matchup of the week that we're going to focus on. We're forwarding it all the way to Tuesday. Club Penguin is going into Hershey for a round 2 after that 9-0 shellacking. And
this is where I think they need to be a little nervous.
I feel like there's going to be blood in this game.
I know. I feel like they might need a little bit of like a reality check. Like they might need to look at the season series from the past like 4 seasons just to kind of like not go in too cocky. I love when I love in the cartoons or whatever, or like not even the cartoons, and like old like Abbott and Costello like kind of like vibes, whereas like, you know, you're gonna get hit by the door, and as soon as you get up you get hit by the door again, and you just like comedically fall. I love that in sports. I think it's just because like you're like, I'm gonna pull myself up, and then it's like, nope. Like one of my favorite things is just like second verse same as the first. I don't think that's gonna happen. I think that Hershey might remember that they're on top of the league and are the defending Calder Cup champions. And I do, in fact, think that Club Penguin's coming in a little too cocky. Well, depending. We'll totally have to see how their next matchup goes and like what happens. Maybe they come back to earth a little bit. Maybe that'll humble them a little bit, and like the more humble they are, probably the stronger they are. So it's like Captain
America. I think like maybe if Cleveland can come in and kind of punch them in the mouth, that might kind of, you know, throw some cold water on their face before like you get a real angry Hershey team. Like this team there's gonna be like some huge hits. They had their pants pulled down in a way that like went viral across people who you'd never pay attention to the AHL. Saw like, oh wow, the 2-time defending champs just got pantsed 9-0, you know? And so I feel like there's pride involved in that. Like kind of like how, you know, the Buffalo Sabres went out and decided to fight someone who had nothing to do with knocking their superstar player out, but that was because they were embarrassed on a national stage, and there's a lot of that same kind of vibe coming in for Hershey here. So I don't know if it's going to be like fist flying type of stuff, but I think there's going to be a lot of trash talk. I think there's going to be a lot of hits. I think it's going to be very physical. I think there's going to be kind of a playoff type atmosphere here. And I think the fans are going to be super involved with it too, because like that was in their barn. It's like, okay, now you're in ours. Here's what's coming at you. Now we're going to show you why we have been the powerhouse that we have for the last couple of years. So I think there's going to be there's going to be a vendetta to this type of game.
Yeah, not that that's what we necessarily want to see, but it always makes for good hockey.
I kind of do.
It makes good hockey. Like, I want to see Hershey redeem themselves. I don't know,
Would I love to see second first name as the first? Yeah, I kind of would.
I kind of would, because it's one of those things. It doesn't matter what team it is. It doesn't matter what team it is. Like, there's just something so like innately hilarious that like appeals to like the most primal sense of my human brain, where it's like you see somebody get hit in the face by the school locker only to turn around and get hit in the face by the next one. There's something about it. I don't
know. I think it's classic physical comedy, right? Like the stepping on the rake, and then you step back and you step on the shovel and you just get hit. Like, come on.
Like, come on. And it's even funnier in sports because it's like I'm sitting here on my couch in like, my pajamas, shoving a fistful. Actually, I'm like on a diet now. Shoving like cottage cheese with sriracha tuna and some dill into my face. Like, get paid for that.
Right. I could have done that.
No, listen. Okay, I know you're like at the cottage cheese, but HEB, you don't even have an HEB. HEB's cottage cheese, they have like big curd cottage cheese, and I get it's like a 10% fat one. So basically it just tastes like small little things of mozzarella. So it's like actually really good.
You're never going to convince an Italian that cottage cheese tastes like mozzarella.
It does.
Well, it's just not. Yeah, I mean, it might. I would believe that it might, but you're not going to convince me that it does.
I'll put it in your face and you just be like, eat it. It's good. Listen, I'm not a cottage cheese person either. So I have but I'm trying to go on a calorie deficit because like I need to cut a little bit before I start bulking again. So I got to find things that would be pretty like nutrient dense, and especially like high in protein. And without just like throwing a whole like too much food in your body, because obviously like the less calories you eat, the more like whatever, like you get into a mental deficit as well as like a calorie deficit. I obviously don't need that. I drive 30 minutes to work and 30 minutes back every day. So it's, it's one of those things where it's like, you got to find the things that even if it's like whatever, and I'm mixing it with like sriracha tuna. Like it's, it doesn't even taste like just the cottage cheese anymore. You got to find things. And every recipe I can find has cucumbers, apparently. So I'm kind of like, if I never see a cucumber again, we'll probably be fine.
I like cucumbers. But anyway, that is that's it. That's our show for the week. And it's just more and more chaos as I feel like All-Star break's done. Now we're getting into we're getting playoff ready, baby. And it's the best time of the year. I can't wait for it. And we're going to be bringing you all the coverage of the playoff race, the postseason itself, everything, every little nook and cranny here on the AHL pre-show. So thanks again for joining us this week. I'm Drew.
I'm Dee.
And we'll catch you guys next week, same time, same place.